Hi everyone and welcome to Mendix Malt. Mendix Malt is a YouTube channel dedicated to Mendix, where we talk about Mendix over some beer. Now, if you're in a big organization implementing Mendix, you've probably faced some resistance to Mendix or low code or change surrounding your project. And if you want to know why you're facing that resistance, and if you want to know 3 things you can do to overcome that resistance, then this is the episode for you. But before we get into that, let's go get some beer. So to really understand this resistance to change, you have to understand organizational culture. Now, Edgar Schein is one of the original thought leaders in organizational culture. He writes some really great stuff about organizational culture, and he's written a book called Organizational Culture and Leadership. So culture is often defined as the secret ingredient to a company's advantage, competitive advantage at least. But what is culture? So based on what Edgar says, culture is created when you have a group of people that work together, and in working together they overcome a set of challenges. So in an organization, you typically overcome some challenges to reaching your objectives. And in overcoming those challenges, the group forms assumptions around how they should overcome those challenges. And when those set of assumptions are then taught to new people in the group, then that really is what defines, that is really the definition of culture. Culture is what emerges out of that. It's these set of assumptions that new people learn. They may not have worked through the group originally, but they get taught when they're onboarded, this is how we do things. And that's what culture is. So Edgar says that culture basically exists on 3 different levels. You've got the artifact level, so that's a visible level. So you get companies that print things on t-shirts, put things on walls, have even something like a sticky note on your sprint board. It's some kind of artifact that means something to the group of people. You can't take those artifacts at face value. So for example, a saying like, we value simplicity to one company might mean something to another company, a different set of people. So it's highly contextual artifacts, but it's visible at least. So you see these artifacts. So that's the first level of culture, on the path to culture. The second level where where culture comes from is where those beliefs are kind of starting to be adopted by individuals. So what typically happens is a group faces a type of problem. They don't know how to solve it. One or many people in the group will offer a solution. Other people in the group might be a bit tentative. They won't fully be bought in yet, but they go along with it. And then based on the outcome of that decision, they will decide whether this is something worth starting to accept or not. And those are called accepted or adopted beliefs. And you see that in IT all the time. When people face a problem, they might suggest this is a technology to solve it. You'll have your skeptics. But ultimately, when that solution more or less delivers what it's supposed to deliver, people in the group start to think, okay, we can use this, it's worth it. So those are called adopted beliefs. But then finally you get this lowest level of beliefs, and these are very deep and often not even really spoken about. And that is when these assumptions are affirmed and reaffirmed and reaffirmed and reaffirmed over time, the group starts to accept those set of assumptions as fact. So it's things we don't challenge anymore. So in other words, if we've solved a specific scale problem a certain way, or if we've solved a specific IT problem a certain way, or a specific programming problem a certain way, and it's been consistent and the business has been happy to it, we're going to accept that this is the way you do it. There's no real way to change it. So you can start to see where something like low code or Mendix might be facing the problems here. If people have traditional development philosophies that have been reaffirmed over time down these 3 layers, there's this very deep belief that this is the only way you can solve it. So when Mendix arrives and says, you have this low-code solution, that's rapid solution, you can scale it easy, you can get ideas out to market a lot quicker, it starts to challenge those fundamental beliefs, and that's where you start to see the resistance. This is where it comes from. Cool, so the other important thing you need to know is that this group that forms around these set of assumptions uses this set of assumptions to kind of protect itself against unknowns. Right? And unknowns is perceived as painful to any group. To face something you didn't know how to solve is risky, uncertain, and painful. So when somebody starts to challenge these basic set of assumptions, the first thing the group does naturally as a survival mechanism is kind of to defend and repel this attack on its assumptions. And that's really where you start to see this resistance to Mendix, is on that level. To challenge a group of people to think completely differently around a solution that's worked for them in the past draws them to this uncertainty, and they resist that. So luckily it's not the end of the game. There are things we can do to overcome it, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So the first thing a leader needs to do, or a Mendix implementer with influence needs to do, is find those set of assumptions in the group you're working with. Look for stories, have conversations, learn about the company history, find out what this group really finds as a set of assumptions. And once you have that, the second thing you do is understand the benefit those assumptions are bringing. What is the group really benefiting from? What do they get from the set of assumptions? Is it security? Is it optimization? Is it a sense that things will be fine? What is the real reason that they have those set of assumptions? Because it's always worked in the past, something like that. And then the third thing you do is then start to take a leadership position using those benefits. So the example will be, you had a set of assumptions that resulted in the benefit of code working, or you had a set of assumptions that meant that when you release these things to production, you've thought through all the scenarios. Those are the benefits, you thought through it, and then start to bring that back into the new technology or the new idea that you're suggesting. So those are the benefits. Mendix can achieve those benefits as well, and this is how I propose you do that. And as you start bringing those in, you kind of have to measure the anxiety of the group at the group's level. So as the anxiety starts to spike, you as a leader, this is the third thing you have to do, is start to address that spike through calming the group, via reassuring them that the things that they're worried about, the benefits they're getting through this new way of doing things, is not going to be at risk. The benefits will still be there. What is changing is the way you might reach it. And then in doing that, you start to break through on this level, start to reach a level of acceptance. So just remember those three things. Find a set of assumptions, understand what the benefits are to those assumptions, and then lower the anxiety by assuring that the new change doesn't threaten those assumptions. And I hope that you can use this mechanism to introduce Mendix deeper into your projects. I hope you find less resistance from organizations that you're with. And I'd really like to know how the success cases is, especially. I'd love to know about it. So let me know, and it'll be great to catch a beer with you sometime. And until then, cheers.